I'm Tricia, and I'll be reading you this week's The Barnstable Patriot, dated Friday, October 25th. And we lead off today with Official Backs Fee on High-Priced Home Sales at Cape Summit. An optional real estate transaction fee for Massachusetts towns was on the mind of a featured speaker at the annual Housing to Protect Cape Cod Conference on October 17th. The state's top housing official, Edward Augustus, told Cape and Islands housing supporters to keep advocating for legislation that would allow Massachusetts cities and towns to adopt a real estate transaction fee on pricey home sales. Last year, Governor Maura Healey had proposed the local option transfer fee as part of her $4.1 billion housing bill. The fee would have given communities the option to adopt a real estate transaction fee of 0.5 to 2% on part of a property sale over $1 million. That fee would then be used to fund affordable housing within the community, but the House later dropped the proposal from a revamped version of the bill. I think folks should continue your advocacy not only with the administration, but with the legislature, said Augustus, the Massachusetts Secretary of Housing and Livable Communities. Talk about why that is an important tool to you, and don't give up. State Senator Julian Cyr, Democrat from Provincetown, also threw his support behind the proposal, urging Cape Towns to file a home rule petition in support of the concept if they have not already. On Thursday, housing advocates across the region attended the annual summit at the Cape Cod Irish Village. Formed in 2022 to push for year-round affordable housing, the Housing to Protect Cape Cod Coalition is comprised of Housing Assistance Corporation, Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, Home Builders and Remodelers Association of Cape Cod, and Cape Cod and Islands Association Realtors, according to the website. The new Affordable Homes Act, signed into law by Healey on August 6, implements 49 policies to address the home crunch and authorizes $5.16 billion in spending over the next 5 years. State officials also estimate it will support the building and preservation of more than 65,000 homes statewide over the next 5 years. A spokesperson for the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities said the Housing Advisory Commission is putting together a 5-year housing plan that will include an estimate of how much housing is needed in each region of the state. The document would help determine where resources are spent in the state and is likely to come out early next year. At the event, Housing Assistance Corporation CEO Alyssa Magnotta presented awards to 4 housing champions: Cyr, Tara Vargas Wallace, Michael Galasso, and Lynn Rhodes. And next up on the political front, Healey says she supports needs of restaurant owners on Question 5. The governor will vote against 2 ballot questions and is making up her mind on 2 others, and won't say how she plans to vote on the proposal to expand powers of a fellow constitutional officer. Governor Maura Healey gave a rundown of her ballot on October 16 during her monthly hour on GBH Radio's Boston Public Radio program with co-hosts Jim Broad and Marjorie Egan. The Democrat would not say how she will vote on Question 1 to give Auditor Diane DiZoglio authority to audit the state legislature, and said she is reviewing Questions 3 and 4, respectively related to app tip-based driver unionization and legalization of psychedelic drugs. Healy said she's going to fill the no oval on question 2 to eliminate the use of MCAS test as a graduation requirement, and question 5 to phase out the sub-minimum tipped wage. The governor, a former waitress at Diner, the Hampton Beach Casino Ballroom, and nicer places in the evening, said Wednesday that she feels really strongly about her opposition to question 5. I actually oppose it because, look, I waitressed on and off from the time I was 13 to 24, Healy said, leading Bod to ask if she was a good waitress. I got a lot of tips. I think I did a pretty good job. I hustled. The governor said she thinks question 5 is a well-intentioned effort brought by out-of-state interests. The National One Fair Wage Group, which is leading the ballot question campaign here, is also behind similar efforts in other states. Earlier this year, the head of the Massachusetts Restaurant Association criticized the ballot effort as an effort brought from activists from California. The head of the national group has said it got involved here at the request of Massachusetts employees who reached out and sought help building a campaign. I think it's important to vote no on this, Healy said, because I think you run the risk of closing restaurants and putting these workers out of work, actually. Because the restaurant owners I speak to are not going to be able to afford this, and they're going to end up laying off people. In some instances, some have told me they're just going to shut down. Tipped workers currently earn an hourly minimum wage of $6.75, and employers are required to pay them the difference if they do not make enough in customer tips to reach the state's $15 hour minimum wage. Question 5 would eliminate that structure over a 5-year period by gradually raising the minimum wage for tipped workers to $15 an hour, and would give restaurant owners the option to create tip pools in which waiters and bartenders share tips with back-of-the-house workers. The Yes on 5 campaign promoted an event in the afternoon of October 16 with Harvard Law School professor Catherine McKinnon on the ways sexual harassment affects tipped workers. The campaign said the event is part of its broader event to underscore question 5 as a critical women's rights issue, and it coincides with the release of a new digital ad featuring Kamala Harris's support for eliminating the sub-minimum wage and tackling the pervasive problem of sexual harassment in tipped industries. It's a topic that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton raised when she weighed in on question 5. You know, I had a short experience living on tips when I was a law school student, but there are people in Massachusetts who have lived on tips for decades, Clinton said in her endorsement video. Tipped workers are mostly women, and they're working hard not to make a living, but to overcome the harassment and economic barriers that stand in their way. Women have a lot on the line in this election. Vice President Harris has endorsed requiring restaurants to pay the full minimum wage with tips on top, while former President Trump has tried to take tips away from workers. So please stand with working women, stand with Vice President Harris and all service workers. Vote yes on November 5 on question 5. Healy suggested Wednesday that people who are still undecided on question 5 should talk to servers and bartenders at their favorite establishments. Public polling on the question has been all over the map. 3 different surveys over the last month have shown the yes side of a razor-thin lead, a significant deficit, and then a potential blowout victory. The governor's opposition to the question puts her on the same side of the issue as the Massachusetts Republican Party and at odds with groups like Progressive Mass, Mass Vote, Mass Voter Table, and with other Democrats including Clinton and U.S. Rep. Ayanna Pressley. As the Attorney General, I fought hard for workplace protections, for fair wages, for benefits, for all that. So I'm certainly in this camp, and I think this actually harms that effort, Healy said. And that's why I feel really strongly about this particular question. Well, what about question 1? Healy made clear on GBH Wednesday that she plans to cast a vote on question 1, which would give the state auditor the explicit authority to audit the House and Senate, but the governor declined several opportunities to say how she will vote on that question, which has enjoyed support in public opinion polls, but is more controversial on Beacon Hill, where Healy works with the legislature. I'll leave that to the voters, she said. Broad followed up, and Healy confirmed she is going to vote on the matter. DiZoglio has been pushing since her time as a candidate for her office to be able to audit the House and Senate, despite objections from top Democrats that doing so would violate constitutional separation of powers. She and her allies opted to pursue a ballot question explicitly granting the auditor's office that ability after their other attempts failed to gain traction. House Speaker Rob Mariano and Senate President Karen Spilka, the 2 people who largely control the fate of Healy's legislative agenda, are firmly opposed to the notion of an audit by DiZoglio's office and claim DiZoglio is driven by political motives following her time in the House and Senate, when she often publicly criticized legislative leadership. That one I'm going to leave up to the voters, the governor said when Broad brought it up. And moving on the front page of the Barnstable Patriot, a planned public mural in Hyannis drawing controversy. On October 2nd, the Cordial Eye co-executive director Mary George stood before 3 building-sized public art walls at the Hyannis Public Library. The public art wall is sponsored by the Arts Organization and the library and was approved in 2022 by the Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Commission. Now, the potential to build more murals throughout Hyannis is being stymied, George said. This commission is inserting their subjective opinions about what this community should look like, she said. None of them have expertise on public art, but they have unilateral power to say yes or no to public art in the district. The town commission was created in 1996 to address revitalization and historic preservation of downtown Hyannis, according to the town. There are no official guidelines for public art in Hyannis, but the murals at 401 Main Street Library go before the commission for reapproval every 6 months. Not every mural in Hyannis is required to get reapproval. In May, a second public art project, a mural, was proposed to the commission by the Arts and Justice Collective, comprised of the Cordial Eye, Amplify POC Cape Cod, and Belonging Books. As planned, the mural will honor civil rights activist Eugenia Fortes, who died in 2006. If approved, the piece will be painted at 436 to 438 Main Street. During recent meetings, though, some commissioners said other historical figures were more appropriate for the district than Fortes. In January 2023, the Arts and Justice Collective was awarded a $30,000 public art for spatial justice grant from the New England Foundation for the Arts. About $13,000 was designated to support a mural, according to George. On September 20th, 2023, the collective held an information and listening session at the Zion Union Heritage Museum to collect input on how a mural could highlight diversity and community, said George. Attendees almost unanimously chose to feature elements surrounding Fortes because of her activism. The virtual sketch of the project features Fortes's hands holding a banner with a quote that says, "They didn't know we were seeds." The quote is derived from a poem by Greek poet Dinos Christianopoulos and has been used during social justice movements around the world, said George. The design also included Fortes's infamous handmade quilts on display at museums in Hyannis. The collective plans to paint the mural on polytab cloth, which can be removed. At commission meetings on August 21st, September 20th, September 23rd, and October 2nd, members suggested the mural be more inclusive and infused with maritime and colonial history. When I think of honoring someone on a wall in Hyannis who has done a lot of good for the community and for the Cape, I think of JFK and RFK, said Commission Vice Chair Tom Doherty. Other commission members said the proposed mural should be painted outside the historical district. It's a shame we haven't been taught more about Eugenia Fortes. That's terrible, said Commission member Laura Cronin on October 2nd. But that's not what you do in an alleyway in the historical district. Fortes died at age 94. She was known as the Rosa Parks of Cape Cod. Fortes is just as important to the district as the Kennedys, and the purpose of the project is to have a greater sense of justice built into the local government, George said generally. At meetings, Commission Chair Cheryl Powell questioned the use of Christianopoulos' quote. The quote most recently has been used in women's movement and for Palestine, said Powell. We don't want to be political. Our purpose is to preserve the character of our community, not to create history. At one meeting, Commission member Kevin Matthews suggested that the quote be swapped for a Fortes quote. At a subsequent meeting, George and Cordial Eye co-executive director Anastasi Pasella suggested, "We are not going anywhere," a quote Fortes said in 1945 when she and a friend refused to leave segregated East Beach in Hyannisport. In 2004, the beach was renamed in Fortes's honor. Matthews preferred a quote that Fortes said when she accepted the Mercy Otis Warren Award in 2004. She said, "Do what your heart tells you is right," said Matthews. It's a poignant thing to say. For Commissioner Cornelius Colley, it's important to accurately portray who Fortes was. To whitewash or sugarcoat her history and her voice would be inappropriate, he said. We are going to approve it for what it is, not for what we'd like it to be. At one commission meeting, local business owner Jane Walsh said the mural will transform a derelict space. Not everybody is going to go to a gallery. but everyone can walk down an alleyway and see a piece of art. It's really a gift, said Walsh. Zion Union Heritage Museum Board President Julia Montero Johnson said at another meeting that it's a shame that more people don't have the opportunity to know Fortes's greatness. For a while here, I was hearing a slight tinge of racism. That surprised me, because I see this mural so differently. I see it differently because I am different, said Montero Johnson. Xavier Mpe, a local artist and entrepreneur, said at the same meeting that the mural could be a teaching tool. There are so many people that look like me who don't see us anywhere. This mural will teach important lessons in history and show us that we are much better together, she said. Morgan Mwalem Peters, a professor at University of Massachusetts Dartmouth, said at that meeting that the commission needs to make room for spatial justice art. In 1994, Peters founded the Oversoul Theater Collective to create a level of equity and diversity that was missing from the Cape, he said. Part of the issue we faced in 1994 was the construct of erasure, said Peters. Unfortunately, it seems that erasure is still part of the conscience of people making decisions on behalf of the town. During the October 2nd commission meeting, Pasella and George said they were amenable to working with the commission, but George called the commission's municipal process a form of red tape. Funders won't give money if they can't ever get anything done, George said. The commission's process has the capacity to stifle the creative economy. And our final article on the front page of the Barnstable Patriot, Hui Oceanographer awarded prestigious MacArthur Grant. For 2 decades, Cape Cod oceanographer Benjamin Van Mooy has investigated the ocean's tiniest organisms, shedding light on their immense role as modulators of ocean health and climate, and as indicators of changes in those systems that humans should heed. This ongoing work earned Van Mooy, a senior scientist in marine chemistry and geochemistry at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, recognition as one of the 22 national winners of MacArthur Fellows grants from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. Van Mooy has worked at Woods Hole since 2003 and is one of just 1,153 people in fields ranging from science and history to the literacy and fine arts and public service to have earned the recognition since 1981. It's definitely one of those awards I never even remotely dreamed I'd get, he said. It was just total disbelief when they called me. I was quite sure they had gotten the wrong guy. It's still sinking in. Hui President and Director Peter DeMonaco said Van Mooy's award is a wonderful recognition of Ben and his exceptional accomplishments. It is also a celebration of Hui's can-do research and engineering ecosystem that fosters creativity, collaboration, and excellence. Recipients each receive a no-strings-attached grant of $800,000 over 5 years to spend as they want, whether it is moving forward with their current activities, expanding the scope of their work, or embarking in entirely new directions according to the foundation. Grant providers focused on those with exceptional creativity, a track record of significant achievement, and with the potential to advance research according to the foundation website. The foundation looks to choose candidates who would benefit from its support relieving them of obstacles that might prevent them from pursuing their most innovative ideas. Through the program, the Foundation aims to support individuals on the precipice of great discovery or game-changing idea. The MacArthur Fellow team recognizes Van Mooy as a scientist who is filling critical gaps in our understanding of intricate biogeochemical networks that sustain life on Earth and of how climate change could impact the health and productivity of our oceans. Basically, my research centers around understanding the role of plankton in the ocean, he said. By looking at the molecular composition of planktonic communities, they can tell us about how the ocean is changing in ways that we may not be able to see. He focuses on the central role plankton play in nitrogen, phosphorus, and carbon cycling in the ocean. For example, one study revealed a relationship between ocean temperatures and production of omega-3 fatty acids in plankton, the same that's found in seafood. This research, the MacArthur Fellow team said, sheds light on how changes to marine ecosystems can impact food webs, carbon sequestration, climate regulation, and other biogeochemical processes. Most of those omega-3 fatty acids are created by phytoplankton at the very base of the food chain. Looking at a sample set of hundreds of samples we collected all over the ocean, we saw there was a really strong trend in the temperature of the ocean and the quantity of the omega-3 fatty acids that they produce, Van Mooy said. Essentially, the findings showed that phytoplankton, which are the basis of the ocean food web, produce more unsaturated lipids, such as the nutritionally rich omega-3 fatty acids, at cooler temperatures, indicating that the nutritional value of plankton is likely to fall as oceans warm due to climate change, according to the Foundation. Any change to the nutrient content of platonic cells has broader implications for ocean ecosystems. The ocean is an incredibly complex place, but it's dictated by all these tiny processes that happen in extremely small scales, Van Mooy said. Our research is able to build bridges between those really tiny molecular scales all the way up to understanding the ocean as a whole and its role in the climate system. Currently, he is probing factors that drive the downward movement of organic cellular materials as part of the carbon cycle and carbon sequestration in the ocean. He and collaborators have come up with new technologies for molecular characterization of what is known as marine snow, microscopic organic matter falling from the upper layers of the ocean to the deep sea, carrying carbon absorbed from the atmosphere and upper ocean, according to the MacArthur Fellow team. Van Mooy said he's long been fascinated by the mechanics of the Great Lakes and oceans and their microbial communities that influence life on a global scale. You look to the horizon and there's a limit to how far you can see. Similarly, there's another horizon that we don't even think about, and that's the horizon of how close we can see, he said. To me, it just draws me in a way that a lot of people are drawn to the far horizon, the promise of what is on the other side of what you can't see. And moving on to page 2, we come to Every Animal Matters. Cape Cod Rescue Group Wild Care expands with new building on premises. Wildlife rehabilitator Amy Sanders cleaned and bottle-fed a 5-week-old gray squirrel in the examination room at Wild Care on October 10. It was one of about 30 baby squirrels Sanders had to care for that day. But squirrels weren't the only animals in the exam room. Cages held a possum, 2 pigeons, a mallard, 3 turtles, and 2 American goldfinches. The only other animal out of its cage was a Corey's shearwater, a type of seabird. Recently, Ellis announced the opening of a new building on the premises. The 36 by 22 story structure with a deck will allow for the reception of injured animals, storage, and a room devoted to cleaning cages, utensils, bowls, and towels. It's hard and dirty work caring for more than 1,800 wild animals brought into the center annually. The building will help 8 staff members and 120 volunteers to be that much more efficient. The cramped exam room in the 1850s farmhouse will be converted into animal space. The old lobby will be converted into a new exam room. Cleaning will no longer have to be done outside or in a small farmhouse kitchen. Laundry will move out of the basement. The cleaning room is the most exciting part of the building, Ellis said. The cleaning never ends. The spacious room is outfitted with a high-heat sanitized dishwasher, stackable washers and dryers, a mop sink, and a stainless steel 3-compartment sink donated by the hot chocolate sparrow. A reception area will house the permanent residents, Garv, the eastern box turtle, Terry, the painted turtle, and Tortilla, the mask turtle. When people drop off injured animals, they will have an educational experience, Ellis said. Solar panels on the roof will provide about 88% of the building's power needs. The nonprofit was able to match a portion of a $21,000 grant from the Turn Foundation for the panel installations. To us, every animal matters, she said. Ellis has an unbridled enthusiasm for each of the animals at Wild Care. She uses the words amazing, beautiful, and incredible often when talking about them. Whether it's the shearwater's feathers and the remarkable distance it flies, they breed near the Azores, but juveniles feed at the eastern seaboard, the blind possum, the sparkling neck feathers of a rock pigeon, the dark colors of the eastern box turtle with a healing abscess. The building project was 6 years in the making, Ellis said. Wild Care gets no municipal, state, or federal funding for its projects. Veterinarians Louise Morgan and Lawrence Venezia volunteer their time. Outdoor release cages are rehabbed when there's money available. The 170-year-old farmhouse will need some updates. Fundraising is an essential part of Ellis's job. In 2024, 83.5% of the donations came from the public, 8.5% came from grants, and 8% came from sponsored events. More than 80% of the animals we get here are due to human impact, Ellis said. This is a problem we caused. Isn't it our responsibility to fix it? The goal is saving animals, but the bigger picture is learning about animals, what impacts them, and how we can coexist with them, she said. She calls Wild Care the eyes and ears on the ground for state and federal agencies, alerting them to emerging diseases, wildlife impacts, and what's happening to specific populations. There are some animals Wild Care cannot care for, such as coyotes, raccoons, fox, skunks. but the organization will help locate other wildlife rehabilitators who can. During the summer, staff had a chance to care for baby short-tail shrews. Ellis called them velveteen, cylindrical, carnivorous creatures. No one gets to see them because they tunnel and burrow. A 30-year-old algae-covered snapping turtle was slated to be released after having its shell repaired. "Isn't she beautiful?" Ellis asked. "She's what's lurking at the bottom of our ponds." A barn held a seabird therapy pool, rooms for squirrel and chipmunk cages, and an avian flu room. The aviary has 3 inner chambers and an outer shell that allows birds to fly around and around. A Canada goose was being treated for lead poisoning in one chamber. The process is lengthy and grueling. WildCare works with Eversource on osprey incidents because so many of the birds nest on power poles. And Ellis estimates that the nonprofit sees more than 100 mice a season. While some consider them pests unworthy of care, Ellis disagrees. They are a native species and an important part of the ecosystem, she said. They are living creatures. If you find an animal in distress, call 508-240-2255. The WildCare helpline and facility are open 7 days a week from 9 to 5. The facility is not open to the public. And here's a timely article. The columnist Lawrence Brown recalls Ethel Kennedy and her legacy. "I had another column ready to offer you, but then Ethel Kennedy died at 96. You might think the Kennedy family story had been written by the playwright Aeschylus. So many deaths, so much tragedy. My wife and I had gotten close enough to a few of the family that we wanted to attend Ethel's funeral mass. If you couldn't make it to the service, I'd like to take you. Our Lady of Victory in Centerville is a voluminous church. It's a drizzly day, not quite cold enough to be nasty, but quite enough to be uncomfortable, and mournful. You'll notice upon entering the first third of the church is empty. Then comes the coffin with more pallbearers than I have ever seen, some of them children. Following the coffin comes an almost endless stream of family, enough to finally pack the front third of the church. Every available window niche has a large print of Ethel, many of them from when she was young. We see her in her equestrian attire clearing a barrier on her horse. We see her with her beloved husband Robert, whom we remember was murdered in 1968. My personal favorite is one of Ethel surrounded by children singing. One of the singing kids is casually perched on her shoulders. What followed was a curious interweaving of funereal liturgy and boisterous humor. If you're like me, you never knew Ethel Kennedy personally, but she took shape in our imaginations as the service unfolded. Born to privilege, she excelled at almost every sport she tried. Her marriage into the Kennedy clan was a perfect fit. Here was a family ethic even Teddy Roosevelt would have admired. There were constant challenges for the children. We learned as the stories unfolded, hiking up mountains in the cold, sailing in rough weather, bashing into waves, and being drenched by everyone. But at every step, it seemed, the challenges were wrapped in joy and tenderness. They played football outdoors and charades when it rained. They had tons of kids without anyone getting lost in a shuffle. As tragedies struck them again and again, they pulled their family around them like a cloak, closed ranks, and kept going. There was a point in the service when family members came up one at a time to offer prayers which the congregation would then affirm. These were brought to us mostly by kids. One of them offered prayers for all the family animals, and it seemed that Ethel's horse teemed with life like a small zoo. Ethel's house teemed to life like a small zoo. In one prayer, the animals were listed. Some of them were named dogs, birds, reptiles, even, if I heard right, a small burro. And it sounds like they were loved too. And for more than one child and speaker, prayers for social justice. Not only had Ethel spoken in public, first for Jack, then for her husband Robert, she supported the struggles of migrant farm workers. She took the side of Native Americans in their quest for fair treatment, of racial minorities, and later in her life, of gay and transgendered people. No one can deny that all of these stories took place in a setting of power and privilege. Dignitaries of all sorts were at hand, with photographers outside to document their presence. The entrance to the church was flanked by a military honor guard in full dress, rows of medals on every chest. But I spent 8 years teaching in boarding schools and running dormitories stuffed with children of elite families. A big part of my job was tending to the broken hearts of children whose important parents had no place for them in their daily lives. This was different. A refugee from the killing fields of Cambodia once told me, after having seen 15 of her immediate family starved and slaughtered, there is no such thing as too much family. It may sound old-fashioned and patriarchal, but it makes a difference if the children of our most powerful families are taught to spend their lives in the service of others. Consider the alternative, the arrogance and casual cruelty that so often accompanies great power. The congregation sang 2 stanzas of America the Beautiful. Several lines could serve just as well for each of us as it does for our nation as a whole. America, America, God mend thine every flaw, confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law. It was a lot to take in, but maybe you'll get the best sense of this combination of liturgical seriousness and almost rascally good humor by the way everything ended. The recession was not a hymn. Instead, it was something popularized by Louis Armstrong back in the day when Ethel was young. When the saints come marching in. It took maybe 30 seconds before the sounds of rhythmic clapping could be heard in the church. Soon everybody was smiling, and I realized, just as we were starting to leave, that the joyful clapping had started in the front where the Kennedy family was sitting. I think it's safe to guess that this is Ethel's legacy, to be raised up to accept enormous challenges, knowing that whatever the outcome, you will be loved after. Ethel Kennedy is survived by 9 of her 11 children, 34 grandchildren, and 24 great-grandchildren. And this was brought to you by Lawrence Brown, a columnist for the Cape Cod Times. And now, Cape Cod House Hunt, completely renovated sandwich home with barn. This splendid sandwich antique home with a barn has undergone an astonishing renovation from top to bottom. It's the best restoration I have ever seen, said listing agent Betty Allen of Decoy Realty. The finish work is remarkable. Priced at $1,200,000, the home, built in 1837, features 3 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, and 2 half bathrooms. Classic entertaining spaces include a parlor and a great room with beautiful flooring. The home is graced by 3 fireplaces, one that uses gas and the others burn wood. The renovated kitchen is a chef's dream with chopping block counters and top-of-the-line appliances. The primary bedroom is also located on the first floor and features a luxurious bathroom and French doors leading out to a brick patio and exquisitely landscaped yard. The completely redone barn is a place of wonder. The gorgeous heated space features breathtaking woodwork and would make an ideal home office or artist's studio, or just a place to get away from it all and cozy up with a good book. You'll also love the home's Sandwich Village location, tucked into a wonderful neighborhood more formally known as Jarvisville Historic District. A delightful half-mile stroll will take you to the scenic Sandwich Boardwalk, where you can cross the marsh and plant your towel on Town Neck Beach. All the great dining and shopping options in the village are also an easy walk from the home. And for those who need to travel to the mainland, it's good to know that the Sagamore Bridge is a mere 3 miles from the house. If you are seeking a home that seamlessly blends old Cape style, stunning renovation work, and a great location, it may well be worth a trip to see the beautiful Sandwich Village for a look-see. And the address is 21 Liberty Street, Sandwich, $1.2 million, 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths, 2 half baths, on 0.31 of an acre, and it was built in 1837. To buy, contact Betty Allen, Decoy Realty, 508-364-4180. And now an article for you foodies. Brewster Greenhouse Dinners, Wagyu, edible marigold, and Eastham turnips. Chef Kevin Curtin and farm manager Josh Schiff are out on the Chatham Bars Inn farm, crouching over to pick flowering fennel. Here, try this, Schiff urges, handing us what looks like a piece of greenery from a floral arrangement, but explodes in the mouth with sweet, burst flavor. Curtin is Chatham Bars Inn executive sous chef and has been overseeing the greenhouse dinners here for 3 years. The 8-acre farm that grows more than 140 varieties of vegetables and herbs is his grocery store. It all kind of starts back in January when Josh is buying seeds, Curtin said. Any cool new seed that hits the market, Josh is on top of it, and we start figuring out ways to use it in the menu. The farm's produce feeds the kitchens at Chatham Bars Inn 8 miles away, ending up as an ingredient or edible garnish on dishes at Stars, the Sacred Cod, and other restaurants the inn runs. In late summer and fall, Curtin uses those flavors to serve up Friday night dinners for 150 people out in the field or, when it gets colder, in a greenhouse. This week's culinary destination is France, but you can taste the Cape Cod farm in nearly every bite. I travel all over the world for work, and France is my favorite. They know how to live, Joe Ryan of Chatham said. Ryan, who was at the dinner with his wife, Mary Ryan, said, "I was especially happy tonight because I didn't know the menu until we came in." Seated next to Joe Ryan at the long communal table is Susan Savage, whose daughter Katie has brought her here for a birthday celebration. The multi-course meal unfolds over 2 hours. The cost is $200 per person, and the food is served family style, with each course perfectly timed. The celebration of French cuisine starts with cheese puffs, butter-dipped radishes, each wearing a jaunty yellow cap of butter, and a mug with duck consommé. Each course is paired with a wine, starting with a welcome cocktail of Negroni Subligado a la Francaise. Tables are set with baskets of house-made breads, butter, and sauces. But here is where the farm takes center stage. Bowls of vegetables nestled on eggplant hummus appear with colors so vibrant they might have been staged for a still life painting. There are purple carrots and yellow, as well as more traditional orange. Some weeks there are caramelons, a hybrid planting producing fruit that tastes like a sweet cucumber but looks exactly like a watermelon sized for a dollhouse. There is Wagyu beef and tuna tartare with smoked onion soubise, chicories, and puffed rice. Of note are the greens in this, called lacy tangerine, and derived from an edible marigold plant. Edible flowers are a stretch for some. Never mind eating the greens, Curtin said, knowing that a lot of creativity from a lot of people goes into using all the farm's yield. A few years ago, we made a marigold wit beer with the greens. While the appetizer is being plated at the front of the tent, Chatham Bar's Inn executive pastry chef Brennan Froschner is placing the first 100 of 600 plump white scallops being seared on a drum-sized flat grill. He's the pastry chef. "This is my happy place here at the farm," said Froschner, helping out with a protein course because the 150 white chocolate profiteroles that he made for dessert are all set until it's time to serve. Curtin said he and many of his contemporaries graduated culinary school at the height of the farm-to-table movement. Both he and Froschner keep home vegetable gardens as well as working at the farm. While Froschner grills scallops, Curtin places a tray of vegan scallops into the wood fire pizza oven. They are discs cut from plump white Eastham turnips, which Curtin is searing to serve with greens. The sugars caramelize in the oven's blazing heat as the vegan shellfish cooks. The main course is beach plum glazed duck, with the slow-cooked legs over scalloped potatoes with onions and the fennel that we met earlier in the evening. Duck breast is served in separate platters with lemony leeks. This explains the appetizer of consommé as the French and the chefs try to waste nothing. As the meal draws to a close, with cream puffs and a wine pairing, the chefs are lined up waiting for the signal to pour hot French chocolate over the profiteroles. The signal comes when all plates are cleared and a cadre of servers whisks the desserts to the tables. The service works like a well-oiled clock. Guests are invited to take home the table bouquets that florists Sarah Pells and Jenna Smith have crafted with white hydrangea and pale pastel flowers grown at the farm. It's France, so the greenhouse will be lighter and more white to complement the French theme, Pells said. Last week was South America, so we did more of a tropical feeling. The diners have come dressed in everything from designer jeans to a gold sequin jacket that sparkles under the twinkling white lights laced over the soaring ceiling. Everyone is wearing a celebratory mood, laughing and calling out farewells. Despite the rows of herbs growing in live trays, it's hard to picture the greenhouse in the spring when more than 40 varieties of tomatoes grow, some as part of the Chatham Bar's Inn farm working with Cornell University to develop a meaty, flavorful tomato that can grow in the Northeast's colder climes. We're showcasing vegetables at these dinners that people would not normally encounter. Cooking with newer items like a tender eggplant that is served raw and Italian oxheart tomatoes that stay green on top when ripe helps people to be more receptive to buying those things at a farm stand and using them at home. For a list of upcoming greenhouse dinners and the winter hours, visit chathambarsin.com. And our final article, start Halloween with this Cape Cod celebration sampler. Toss a ring around a witch's hat? Easy. Do that while riding past on a zip line? Could be a little more challenging. You can find out for yourself on Saturday, October 26th by trying your hand at the witch's hat ring toss at the Adventure Park at Heritage Museums and Gardens at 67 Grove Street, Sandwich. Then, from noon to 12:30 p.m. on October 27th, show off your costume for a chance to win free tickets and other prizes at the Halloween costume contest. Judging begins at noon next to the main platform. And throughout the rest of October, keep an eye out for the strategically hidden eyeballs. Go on a scavenger hunt and find the locations to win a treat from the park store. Eyeballs not your thing? Relax and eyeball the foliage. Walk-ins are acceptable if space is available, but reservations are recommended. Visitors 7 years old and older can navigate obstacles on the park's trails while secured with a harness. Admission starts at $68 for a 2-hour session, with additional half-hour instruction. Learn more at myadventurepark.com. That's just one of the Halloween celebrations happening on Cape Cod this month. Visit capecodtimes.com/things to do for a full list of activities and check out these other adventures to see. Through October 31st, take a stroll through Kate Gould Park in Chatham to meet the pumpkin people. Fascinating displays draw thousands to the park annually. On October 19th, Chatham celebrates its Oktoberfest from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Kate Gould Park, 115 Chatham Bars Ave. Admission is $5 plus a $2.18 Eventbrite fee. Parking is free. From 1 to 2:30 p.m. on October 26th, Chatham Recreation will host its second annual Halloween egg hunt at the Chatham Community Center, 702 Main Street. Thousands of eggs will be hidden, but it is a golden egg that is key to the pumpkin full of treasures. And what does Halloween mean to you? At John Kelly Park in South Dennis, from noon to 4 on October 26th, it means a kid's egg hunt, face painting, magic, jugglers, stilt walkers, and more. And finally, the Brewster Baptist Church parking lot at 1848 Main Street will be a sweet place from 1 to 3 on October 26th for a trunk or treat. And that's all I have time for today. This is your reader, Tricia, saying thanks for listening.